Greetings, welcome back to HM Live. I trust you're having a blessed week and that, of course, your weekend was tremendous. I do know that it was a holiday weekend, and now we're marching toward General Conference. Looking forward to seeing many of you there. Just a few minutes ago, I was thinking about the unique reality of what God has asked us to do as missionaries. And I don't think that any of us are not missionaries. If you're a pastor, you're still a missionary. If you're an evangelist, you're a missionary. We all have a responsibility as missionaries. But it segued into the thought that our God, our Jesus, is a missionary God. Missions involves going. Missions involves reaching new people to convert them, discipling them, maturing them, and then developing people to take on significant responsibilities and advance the cause. This God is a missionary God. John said it so pointedly that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he kind of flows from that into what's almost a parenthetical statement describing some other things. But he returns to this principal thought about the Word. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. One modern translation has it, and the Word was made flesh and moved into our neighborhood. That's missionary work. That's what this is all about. I want to encourage missionaries today that you're not creating some new mode. You're not doing something that's never been done before. It's what God deemed was necessary when He left glory and robed Himself in flesh and came among us. So you have a great pattern. You have a great model that's already before you. Do the same thing He did. All of us. Even if you're pastoring a church you've been at for 25 years, you're still a missionary. That means converting people. That means discipling people. 3, that means raising up people who will multiply what you're doing. Are you in the preacher development business is what I'm getting to with that. Well, one of the great things that happens in the United Pentecostal Church is our ministry to young people. And I'm very grateful for those who ministered to me when I was a teen and even before. Even before there was a Christmas for Christ, we had She's for Christ. I guess She's for Christ is the granddaddy of all of the giving opportunities in the United Pentecostal Church. And we're in the wrap-up days of your opportunity to participate in She's for Christ. Joining me in the studio today for HM Live is Brother Shay Mann. Brother Mann leads the youth ministry of the United Pentecostal Church, and I welcome Brother Mann here and appreciate the work he's doing. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Brother Coon. Appreciate you having me today.
Talk to me about She's for Christ a little bit, what the whole year's been like, I guess.
Well, I'll be glad to do it. Thanks for the opportunity. Our theme this year has been Put the Mission in Motion. And we feel strongly about the mission that we have as apostolic believers, and feel like She's for Christ has for years and years. This isn't just a new thing, but has been integral and crucial to our efforts as an organization to spread the gospel here in North America as well as around the world. So our goal is to keep it going.
You know, I remember as a youngster that the driving force was that we were helping provide automobiles for missionaries overseas, and I know that's still a major part of what She's for Christ does. If I were a pastor, and I think this is one of the realities that those of us who deal with some of this stuff have to think about. Okay, just imagine that I'm a 28-year-old or 30-year-old pastor who is in a first pastorate, and I've never had the responsibility of leading a church to give to anything beyond our own local needs. And then I start getting a packet of material from youth department. I'm that pastor. We're having a one-on-one conversation. Compel me. Tell me why I should lead my young people in our church to give to She's for Christ.
You know, I think number one, you start with the principle of giving and helping your young people to see, and in your church even, to see the manifold blessings in being a person who looks to give rather than receive, especially when you're dealing with young people. I guess we're all somewhat selfish by nature, but young people especially tend to be selfish by nature.
Right.
And one of the greatest things that we can do is to get them to turn their focus from being inward to being more outward. And there are many very vital ministry efforts that are funded through She's for Christ. And you mentioned the vehicles for our missionaries, but obviously our home missions connection.
Right.
Helping start churches in a city that needs a church, I think that resonates with the young people of today, and being a part of something that's bigger than themselves. The connection to Tupelo Children's Mansion, helping underprivileged children.
Orphan children.
Lighthouse Ranch for Boys, helping troubled young men.
Right.
And so there are definitely components of She's for Christ that I think that will connect well to someone who is maybe considering whether they should come on board or get involved or not. And if you look at it in those terms, I think it's a pretty easy sell.
Well, and there's a real danger, I think, for churches to become introverted, where that we give to things that are our things. It's
Certainly.
our stuff. It's under our control. Man, you fellas just hit a home run with Youth Congress. I've heard so many positives about that meeting, which is, I guess, one of the largest religious gatherings of young people in North America, perhaps in the entire world. One of the things that I've heard said from that particular meeting is that this is a generation, a coming generation, that is available and willing to be used of God. As one who was obviously involved in planning the meeting, first of all, I thank you for the effort. Taking a step further, your thoughts regarding...
Yeah. Well, Brother Coon, I'm glad you're hearing that, and that's very positive that that's even being talked. But I will say that is a feeling that I have sensed for a number of years, that young people truly are willing to be involved in something of significance. And I think the problem has been, and maybe this is a trend that's beginning to reverse itself, but our expectations of young people. I think many times young people will rise to the level of expectation, and if you expect little, they're going to deliver every time.
Right.
But I think that this Youth Congress, there was a level of expectation delivered, message in and message out, that you don't have to be ordinary, you don't have to be average,
Right.
you don't have to be uninvolved, you don't have to be a crowd follower. You can be involved in the kingdom of God. You can be used of God in special ways and dynamic ways. And so I think that message was sounded at this Youth Congress, and in doing so, the response was amazing by young people, and the words, the testimonies that we've heard since then have been very humbling.
Your role, my role, along with General Superintendent, everybody else, how do we keep from fumbling that ball, that opportunity?
Well, Brother Coon, I think we get what we preach, and I think that we have to purposefully make exposing young people to ministry a part of what we do as ministers and men of God. And if we want young men to be sensitive to a call of God on their life, we've got to expose them to that. If we want young ladies to be open to missions involvement and ministry involvement within the church, young men, young ladies, then we've got to call them to that. Right. And so we have to be very purposeful in how we go about that in our teaching, in our writings, in our preaching, and do everything that we can just to echo that.
One of the things that I've often thought is that we really need some transitional points, and an area that I wonder at times, and you're working to address this, is just that college and career stage of life, where that if people are not careful, they get encumbered with credit card debt, and then before they know it, there's a spouse, and